I jumped the gun.
You like Groundhog Day, you can say the same thing again.
Yes.
You know who really calls the meeting to order?
That's right.
Okay, we're good now.
You like Groundhog?
Bye-bye.
Okay, now that we're live, I will start that again. Welcome to the January 20th, 2026 meeting of the Lynn Benton Lincoln Education Service District Board of Directors. Calling to order, and then we're going to start with introductions. Denise, why don't we have you lead online?
Sure. My name is Denise Hughes, TAFN pronouns she, her, and I'm board rep for Zone 4.
Okay, and then now in the room, let's go this way, starting with Jairo, and then after we get around to Lisa, we'll go down the row of our visitors, okay?
Jairo Bass, I'm a security technician.
Bill, Executive IT Officer.
Michael Thompson, Director, Zone 3.
Lori Greenfield, Director, Zone 2.
Bill Hayes, Director of Zone 1.
Eddie Symington, Director, Zone 7.
Jason Hayes, Superintendent.
Amy Vetter, Director, Zone 5, she, her.
Miriam Cummins, she, her, ella, Director for Zone 6.
Brock Ware, Executive Financial Officer.
Christina Wonderly, HR Director.
Nancy Griffith, Assistant Superintendent. Lisa Shane, Executive Assistant for Secretary. Jody Dodd, Student Success Integration Liaison, LBLESD. Tammy Duco Tim, I'm part of the Strategic Partnerships team here at LBL.
And I'm Will Rosenhoover, and I reside in the Corvallis School District.
Welcome. All right, let's go ahead and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Jason, if you want to go ahead with the
Yeah, so the monthly acknowledgement page, you'll see on page 4. And so there's a few different acknowledgements for January. On January 15th, we recognized Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, and then, of course, yesterday was the holiday, national holiday. January is also the National Poverty in America Awareness Month, the National Slavery and Human Trafficking Month, National Mentoring Month, and Mental Wellness Month. And I think what's really important about it just reminds us of the complex and interconnected needs in all of our communities. And so also on January 16th, we observed the National Day of Racial Healing, which is a time to reflect, listen, and consider how we contribute to understanding and belonging in our daily work and relationships. And then I put some information in the packet regarding the National Day of Healing that was established in 2017. And there's just some information there for our own learning and education. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, do we have any public comments? Thank you. All right. Okay, and so next up is our consent agenda. Are there any questions?
I just have one question on page 2, the role of this one part about folks with years of service. What do we do for recognition for folks with long years of service?
Christina, do you want to take that one?
So at our end of year in service in June, we do acknowledgement of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and sometimes 30 years of service. And then we acknowledge all of our retirees as well. So
That's how we acknowledge it. Thank you.
And people that retire middle of the year, we always invite them back for it. Sometimes they come.
sometimes they come, sometimes
they
they're
go,
like,
I like being retired. I wish you all well. Yeah.
Yep.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda as published in the January 20th, 2026 board folder, board packet.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. All right, the consent agenda has been unanimously approved. And then moving on, so we have board reports, board member reports next. Starting, Miriam, you didn't get a chance to share about the AESA conference at our last meeting, so I wanted to give you the floor, and then I'll check to see if anyone else.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. I couldn't attend last month's meeting. I was sick, so I'm here now reporting. So I attended the AESA conference in December. At the conference, there was a lot of information about AI and how to utilize those principles, how the schools are utilizing them. Some of the sessions that I attended emphasized evaluating program effectiveness, like using ROI frameworks, aligning initiatives to measurable outcomes, and applying practical practices that support student achievement, attendance, and fiscal efficiency. I also went to another one where they highlighted equity and engagement, including strategies to support multilingual learners through Title III consortia. That session was interesting because how they started the session was with this. They gave you a note card, and actually I brought it with me, and they have prompts on the screen, and they were all holiday prompts that really only talked about Christmas. And I brought that up, and I said, you know, we are a public education entity. We can't just talk about one holiday or one festivity. You have to also highlight other holidays in December. And so to them, it was one of those ironic situations because they were here to support multilingual students and being equitable and inclusive, and yet they started the session not that. So I did bring that up because I said, well, what do you have then? What do you suggest? And I said, what are you doing for the holidays? Keep it simple. You don't have to specifically say Christmas or anything like that. Just say holidays. And so they're like, well, we'll keep that in mind next time. So I'm like, okay, cool. So anyway, I thought that was a little ironic, but it was great. I learned what they do in Indiana with multilingual students and how to support them, and using also personal interest projects and how they're utilizing that to help not only the families but the students, and also to be able to graduate in time. And another session that I attended was the federal advocacy session, and I attended that one because I really wanted to know what was going to happen federally. There's a lot of talk, as we all know, about federal funding and how that's impacting schools, so I really did want to learn more about what that was going to look like, especially for ESDs. And they did talk about some of the bills and the sessions when it comes to the budget approval, and how some of the budget is, the House has presented this budget that is not good, the Senate presented a better one, but they're still in the works, and the funding, all in all, we're looking at less money. Pretty much that's what it comes to. And unfortunately, that's going to impact our students. And so another part that I mentioned that too, that she didn't really touch on, was what can we do to provide safety for our students? A lot of our students right now, and I did share with her after the session, are afraid to go to school due to the political climate that is happening to families. And she said they're working to figure out what can they do in order to make sure that there's a safe and inclusive space for families and students to feel that they can attend school without the worry of anything happening to them or their families. They don't know what that looks like yet, and they did invite me over to, I did give them my email, to sessions of discussion on what we can do to help support our students, because in order for them to be successful, they need to have a safe environment. And data and research has indicated that, because a lot of students are in survival mode right now. So, did that, and as you know, I am a very competitive person, and WUBA had this competition leaderboard, and I got first place again. I didn't get a medal this time, but I did get a book, and the book was 10th century book. I didn't bring it with me. I forgot it in my counter. But I did make us proud, and I got first place again. So anyway, that's my report. Yes, and I can breathe.
So what kind of competition were you in?
Yeah, so so like OSBA and EASA do this, like they do it through the app. And it's this leaderboard where you can like submit questions and like.
Engagement, essentially.
It's an engagement just to get people involved, and I'm competitive, and there was, between me and this other person, we were like, I don't think so. I'm like 2 in the morning trying to post it, because I'm like, no, we're gonna make Oregon proud, I'm gonna be in first place, and we did.
Impressive.
Yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning trying to get that leaderboard up. It was something.
Is there anything else that anyone would like to share about what's going on
Just
in here?
an FYI for me, since I came into this board, I've been invited onto the Community Services Consortium Board, and was approved the on it board, so I'm just kind of getting my legs under there, but a lot of interesting, foreshadowing parallels with training and information that affects all of these 3 counties.
So much amazing community involvement, thank you. Okay,
I think that's it.
I think that's it.
I did have
Oh,
something
I'm
to
sorry.
report. I'm like, I'm here. So I attended the last Corvallis School District, their meeting, and of course, there's a lot going on there. So it was interesting to hear public comments. Some were related to the whole school consolidation thing that's happening right now. But in addition to that, the board, they did a reading of, so they're looking at a resolution for the rights of undocumented students. So they had a discussion about that, and they updated, well, the conversation was around updating what was previously in place, because what was in place was from 2016. So there was, a lot of discussion about that. And I think what was interesting for me was that the approach is through a more trauma-informed lens. Um, what was really riveting was hearing from some community members about what's happening in their own community, and, especially what's happening for families and for children, like not knowing whether or not you will see your parent when you return back home from school. So, some of those public comments, they were definitely heartbreaking. I'm really glad that there is this resolution around how do we protect, our families, and not only at the school itself, but also on any property that's owned by the district as well. So that was, yeah, so that was interesting for me.
That's really important. Thank you so much for sharing about that. And then again, I'm so sorry for not asking if you had comments, so. Alrighty, let's go ahead and move on to reports.
Yeah, so we have our strategic partnership for student success team here, and I'm going to turn it over to our assistant superintendent, Nancy Griffith, to introduce our guests. Kick this off.
Shared here. So, as I think most of you know, I took over the strategic partnership program this year, and I thought I'm going to invite 2 people who haven't been to a board meeting in a while. Jody Dodd, who came to us from our local district, is in the role that I was in when I first started at the ESD, and then Tammy Ufotum, who also may have come from the local district, but a few years ago now. And I wanted for them to share with you what we're doing right now, both for the region and just the program itself.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I am so privileged to be doing this job that I just got this school year. I was a principal previously, elementary school principal, and I'm excited to be able to mentor new principals in my role and also work with the early literacy team. And then my job is to be the student success integration liaison. And that means that you can see on the rainbow arrow there are all the grants that school districts are offered by the Oregon Department of Education. And in order for them to receive those grants, they have various hoops that they have to come through and reports that need to be written and turned in on time. And in big school districts like Albany and Corvallis, they usually have somebody hired that has a role that does that full time. And in the smaller districts, they don't have someone to do that. So I help superintendents to be able to access these funds. And I'm getting to know the Oregon Department of Education really well, and that's exciting. And I'm also becoming kind of an expert on what all these grants are and what they So one of those grants is the Early Literacy Grant, and that's the one that we're here to talk to you about tonight. And of the 12 districts that we reach out to, we have 12 districts that are participating. And I just wanted to talk about our team. So we have, how many people on our team? 8. There are 8 members on our team, 10, and they all have different various expertise, layers of expertise that they offer to this list, which is in your board packet. And I just wanted to say about this, like, a lot of my job is working with district leaders and principals to talk about their systems and where they might need support, and using those pieces of a conversation to say, oh, you need help with that? Hey, we can help you. And then I go back to the team and we talk about how we can fill in or support them in various ways. And our whole team works really hard to convince district leaders, superintendents, and principals of best practices and what might good professional development be, so that they can have ownership, and then that can trickle down for teachers. Because if you don't have, as you know, if you don't have the top of the pyramid with buy-in, then you're not as successful in the other areas. So, but our job as a team is to really just reach every area and make sure that we're giving support to every area of school. Okay. So, yeah, so of the early literacy grant, school districts have 5 areas that they can choose to spend the money on. But there are 3 areas that are absolutely required to be a part of their plan, whether they spend the money on those areas or not. And those are the ones with the double asterisk on there. So they have to be doing professional development. They have to be doing high dosage tutoring, which I'll get to in a minute. And they have to be doing extended learning, which means after school or summer school. And so we work to try and provide support in all of those areas. But the high dosage tutoring is one that we've found where school districts really need our support. And go ahead, next slide. And so Tammy's going to talk with you about high dosage tutoring.
Before I get to that, when you look at that chart that has all the different layers in a system, that came about because we started to understand that one of the reasons we're not seeing improvement in literacy is because we often just address one layer. We're going to give professional learning and coaching to teachers. We're going to give professional learning and coaching to paraprofessionals. Often dismissed our administrators. And our superintendent advisory board last year came and they identified third grade literacy as a major problem in our region, and it is in our state. I'm sure you've read the headlines. And so we did a root cause analysis, and out of that, the superintendents realized really building principals need support. They need to understand literacy practices. They need to be trained on how to create systems and coach in their buildings. So when we said who needs professional learning and coaching and support, it was everyone. And so that list came about because of that. And one of our layers are paraprofessionals. They are actually the ones in buildings who deliver the most reading instruction. They're in interventions, they're in classrooms, it's small group reading. And so in order to qualify and be vetted for high dosage tutoring, and I really appreciate Jody, because our colleague Rochelle Bell and I created an 8-part series, 2 hours. It's a big commitment, 8 2-hour sessions that we do for the science of reading. And it goes in deep, and we weave theory and practice, because it's important when you are spending that much time with students, do you understand why you're being asked to teach what you're teaching, and you understand how you can adjust your teaching to support students in the moment. And that's really our goal with that. Right now, we have about 6 of our 12 districts who have signed up this year. And the exciting part, we talk about those layers, is that they are feeling so empowered. The word is getting out, and principals are asking for training for their teachers now. And we're really, and that's when we know, right, when the principals, in fact, we've had superintendents in 2 of our districts in the room. When the superintendents, the principal, and teachers and paraprofessionals are all in the room getting the same training, that's when we see change.
So part of the high dosage tutoring requirement is that your paraprofessionals have science of reading training. And so that's why highly qualified tutors certification became a part of our training. So at the end of the 8 modules, all the paraprofessionals who have attended all 8 sessions receive a certificate, and they can put this on their resume. So they're feeling really empowered also by getting this training as well.
I'm just going to cut in and say that that was not the initial intent for the highly qualified tutor certification. ODE was reaching out to companies and the like to have people that could come and train schools. And Jody was like, well, our stuff isn't good, it's not better than theirs. So she took it to ODE and said, shouldn't this be highly qualified as well? And they said, yeah. So we can now do all the trainings for all of our districts, and they don't have to pay something.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Really good.
As I mentioned, our principals, it's a lonely job. I know one of my former principals, Lloyd Greenfield, is sitting across the room, and oftentimes you're in a building and it's all on you. And so we have created a really dynamic literacy leader community of practice, and the building principals who are doing this work with us this year are coming. They're engaging at a high level around what they're learning, and they're also learning from each other. That's what I love about these kinds of settings, because everyone has strengths, and so when you get to leverage those across the region, it really creates a great learning environment for us all. So right now, we have 9 literacy leaders across 7 of our districts who are participating quarterly in those. And we have partnered, we're really fortunate, a couple of years ago. This is the bad news. In our region, somewhere in the 30% range of students were proficient in reading at the 3rd grade level. And so we said, what can we do? What can we do to support? And at that time, ODE had come out with customized coaching and professional learning funding. And so our former integrated guidance liaison, Jeffrey, and I applied for that, and we got that for our region. And this is kind of how this all started. We are collaborating with WestEd. They come in, they do systems coaching with the principals, they do professional learning and coaching with the teachers around a chosen goal by the building. And so all of this is kind of all those layers, right, that we've been working on. And we're seeing, last year was kind of a growing pains year. This year, we're really seeing things take hold. And one of our principals from Harrisburg Elementary said that they have seen some gains. For their students who are the most struggling, they've seen a 16% increase in their achievement over the past 6 weeks. And so that's a lot. Let me tell you, that's a big move in a short amount of time. So we're pretty excited about it.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So with the principals, not getting the information, I guess what I'm thinking is a lot of principals were not aware or don't know of the percentage, or they do know the percentage, but how to support students that are having low literacy. So how did that come about? I guess not all, you probably don't know all the answers, but I'm just trying to understand. They're in the same building. So I'm trying to figure out how is there no communication between the teachers and the principal and understanding that this is a need, that we're at the 30% of literacy in third grade. So how or why, or maybe is it a lack of training or information?
I think everybody understood there was a need.
Okay.
I think, to be honest, everybody is doing incredibly hard work,
Yeah.
the best they know how to do.
Okay.
What we understand when we bring in training and coaching is we have to do things differently. And so what is that, and how do we identify that? And so when I talk about systems training and getting that coaching, it's really being able to look at your system and say, what needs to change? Because we've done things the same way for a very long time, but perhaps our students have changed, the dynamics have changed, the needs of students have changed. So how are we starting to address those? And everybody's very aware that we need to make that change. And so that's why we're really grateful to be able, at the agency level, provide a higher level of support for this work. Because like you're saying, it's critically important.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's kind of one of the questions that I've always had, like, how is it? Because I mean, I have kids in middle school, so it's like, what are principals, what needs do they also need for them to not only support students, but support their staff as well?
Right, and so this is actually what the superintendents and that advisory team identified, like, how can we really support principals who are wearing all the hats in an elementary building? It's generally one person and, taking care of everything. How can we support them at a high level so they can support their teachers at a high level, so that the teachers can support their students at a high level? And so, we're not done. We have a long ways to go, as you brought up, and so we are working to develop, some training for teachers around the science of reading, and then Jody and I will be collaborating. We had a middle school, suggestion that they could really use support around the science of writing, that would be really helpful, and we want to make sure we're addressing that adolescent literacy as well. As you know, they don't always get there to the middle school level and are able to function at a really high level. So.
Yeah, and we're working on learning ourselves so that we can be excellent next year when the science of writing launches. I'm also taking a class at OSU on multilingual language learners and, I just said that. Multilingual early literacy, and which we're going to also add into that workshop. So it's going to be really great and exciting.
So
Thank you
sorry.
Go ahead, Denise.
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah, it's kind of a little clumsy, like knowing when to jump in when you're online. So, wow, I'm, really excited about the work that's going on in terms of literacy, because we know that it's definitely needed, right? And we know too that we have gone through this back and forth about how should we teach reading, so I know that sometimes that's really confusing. My question though, so it sounds as though this is K-12 is the emphasis. I'm wondering about pre-literacy and if there's any work going on, especially with early childhood, so like preschools, if there are any partnerships being developed in terms of that.
Yes, Palomas just asked me if we could do a pre-K unit the other day, which I haven't mentioned to Nancy yet. It's so great. And also, we do care about literacy K-12, and we are doing science of reading next year for secondary and then also primary. But the grant is about early literacy, and that's pre-K through grade 5. So that's mostly where our training focus is right now for
science of reading.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. When we were at the conference in December in Colorado, and I was amongst the sea of vendors as a non-educator, and literacy was a big selling point for many of them, is how did you come to pick WestEd to partner with?
WestEd was instrumental in helping develop the early literacy framework for Oregon. They work closely with ODE. And so I felt like they had a context for Oregon specifically. A lot of times you have vendors who work nationally, but because they helped develop our guiding document, I felt that they might have a better idea of what would be pertinent to what we need.
We actually really got a chance to see their work because they had a pretty big contract with ODE for several years, and so we actually got to really see what their work looked like in many different facets during what Tammy is talking about. And so it was really kind of nice to be able to see what it actually looks like versus just the sales pitch that sometimes you get.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think another determining factor was that many of the other vendors, it was like online modules, asynchronous learning modules. And it's expensive, but they actually come to the site to deliver professional learning and do that coaching in person. And as a longtime instructional coach, I feel like that's a really more successful model for longevity.
And they're also really willing to work with us.
Incredible
and,
collaborators.
You know, they're not like, can't talk to our clients, right? They're partnering with them and going out, and so that is also a big sell too.
And they know we're here when they can't be, so they're helping us.
I could see in-person being way more effective than an online model.
Yeah, we have seen that actually, I think in ourselves, as sorry, it's too long of a day. As we have been working with them, we've seen the impact that they're.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. Sorry, Bill, were you gonna?
Oh, please, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Denise.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, kind
I
of
don't think
along
we can-
those same lines. I was just curious, is WestEd the only vendor in Oregon that offers kind of that more in-person service, or are there other vendors? Did we look at other vendors that do the same thing essentially?
With the customized coaching and professional learning process, they send out, we said what we wanted, and they sent that out to bid, basically. And we got back, I have to go back and look, this was a couple of years ago, but we got back about 4 or 5 vendors. And WestEd provided the most opportunities to come for in-person coaching and professional learning. Some didn't do any, and there were some that would maybe do 1 or 2 during the year.
Okay.
I can't tell you specifically, I have to go back and look.
So I can actually answer that because I was the director and I worked with Jeff when he was here as the liaison. And WestEd offered the highest level of customization as well. I've worked with a lot of vendors in my career, and I was really impressed with their willingness to meet the local needs. And not just for, you know, we have 12 districts. They were very interested in what each district's needs were as well, which you don't find that with most vendors. If you're gonna do a package, it's the same package for everybody. And they were very willing to say, well, if Sweet Home needs this, we'll try this here, we'll try this with this district. So, yeah. And it's great to see that we're still working with them. So.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Earlier, did all 12 of our component districts took advantage of this, but in varying degrees, or?
All 12 were offered the opportunity, but they didn't all take advantage.
Only 6, okay.
Which ultimately was my question too. So to me, it seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
If the ESD is gonna offer this kind of service to
Well-
our districts, this kind of strategic coaching, in an area that clearly is needed everywhere, What do you see some of the obstacles or reasons why only 50% of our districts have taken advantage of it? Is that even something you can answer?
I think, I'm not sure I can, accurately answer it because they would know, but I think some felt like they already had plans in place that they were pursuing. We didn't have the funds to go in and do every building in Albany or every building in Corvallis, and so they would have to strategically choose, which now we've added to buildings in Albany this year. We've been able to build that up with more money this year. We have the West Ed coaching, but we've also tried to do like the science of reading. We've tried to offer things that give us a broader menu of options for districts in case that doesn't work for them. We also just did last Thursday, we brought Jen Knight's instructional coaching group in to lead an incredible training on creating an instructional playbook. And we had 10 out of our 12 districts at that. And so even if someone chooses to not do the West End, and we have limited funds, we can't open it up to every building. We are trying to find opportunities to give our districts that might meet their needs in this.
So, and this all comes out of, take a step back, I think one of your first slides comes out of one of the many integrated, what's now called integrated guidance program. And I just got to say from a district level that when you bring your hands about funding for everything, the things that come out of that, and tough decisions have to be made, I understand that, it doesn't fund everything, but those are some of the most exciting areas of a budget these days and what they can fund. And just thank you. It's a great example of how we are helping, implement throughout our area something so needed that we talk about kind of the big picture way. Great.
This is a perfect example of how our expertise and willingness to be of service can actually improve outcomes for kids that we don't directly serve. That we can just create better conditions for the staff that are working with those students.
Yeah, I really appreciate, just stepping in a little bit again, I really appreciate having the building admins being involved, because I think sometimes what happens too is that you might have a teacher who's like very passionate about like the science of reading, but then once that teacher has left, if that teacher leaves, there's no one there with that knowledge. So having a building admin who actually understands and who has bought into the process, I think is really a good step in the right direction. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on, Denise, that if you want to look at like true change and sustainability and change, it takes you being able to hit all the different levels inside of a building and a district.
Yeah. That was really a driving factor for the instructional playbook work, because often we have these initiatives that this is my 41st, 42nd, I don't know, year in education. So I've seen a lot of these come and go where we bring in, let's say West Ed, we're working on literacy. West Ed walks out the building and that work walks out with them. And so we wanted to find a way to make this sustainable. And we're saying this is important. How do we keep that in the forefront? And this instructional playbook is one of the ways you can do that. And everybody's clear. Everybody's clear on those instructional practices, how they're implemented, and it has ways for principals to know when they go in, this is what you're looking for and listening for. This is this practice being implemented at a high level.
Was that instructional playbook just for literacy?
So that's the great thing, Lori, is that process of creating instructional plays for that playbook is cross-content. It could be for any area, the process that you go through to create those.
Some schools that were there were doing systems work. Some schools were doing early literacy. Some schools were doing, like, the instructional coaches were writing up best practices for teachers, a lot of different documents that they could use. So it's kind of we provided the structure and the team did the work they needed to do.
And we're providing 2 follow-up sessions in the next couple months, because 40-some years of experience tell me you go to a really great PD, you have best intentions, you're gonna go back and get that done, and you don't. And so we have some, workshop sessions coming up where they can actually complete that process.
Yeah. I have one last, oh, sorry.
Okay, I do have a question regarding the budget or who pays for what. So I saw that it was coming out of the Student Success app. So for the districts then, do the districts then pay the ESC, or where is the funding coming for to provide this to the districts?
So we are given a percentage of the Student Success Act as well. And so that's what pays for the people who work in the program.
Okay.
And the work that they do for that.
Yeah.
The early literacy grant helps pay for West Ed
Okay.
to come alongside, and
Actually, it was a separate pot of funds
yeah.
from ODE, it's called Customized Coaching and Professional Learning, because they understand this is a kind of a dire circumstance we're in. So they have set aside a pot of money for districts, like districts are applying, we applied as an agency. Because to be honest, many of our districts, we don't have the capacity to do all this. And so we felt like this was the service that we could offer at this time.
So to understand then, the districts do not pay for us to be able to provide that to them. So this is something that we, as the ESC, we are providing for the district, for our students, for success.
Yes.
Thank you.
fantastic.
Yeah, my question was around the special ed component in terms of like how are we working with special ed teachers, as well as other teachers who support struggling students. I'm thinking about, like students who might experience things like dyslexia, or other or have other types of needs that might get in the way of them being able to, to learn the skills that's needed for reading. So how are we collaborating across the board?
One of the modules in the science of reading is about dyslexia, and so Tammy does a great job teaching about that. And also, the special education teachers have the same access to the PD that we're providing, but also we have a dream as a team to push into special ed a little bit more with the PD.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah.
Question I have, one of the literacies in the news were compared to other states, but it seems like the other concern going with that is attendance. And if children aren't attending, they're not benefiting. Is that tied in at all with West Ed's strategy?
Yes, and we also have a couple of people who work with attendance, but I only had 15 minutes, and that would have been 2 hours presentation with everything that we do in our program, and so, but we do that as well. So that's also part of the services that we provide.
Yeah, and part of the grant.
Part of the grant, and yes, so.
So really, the ESA does a lot for our school district.
Absolutely.
For the most people realize.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much,
much.
such important
Thank
work.
you.
We appreciate all of
Now, if you
you.
have any questions.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Okay, next up is Rocco.
Woo-hoo, money.
I always love following great student success with money. All right, let's go through to page 15 and take a look at what happened in December. So let's start with revenues. We got just about $2.5 million of revenues in for the month. That is our monthly state school fund payment plus a large chunk of our tax receipts. So our tax receipts by this point in time of the year, that is the overwhelming majority of what we'll collect. That is 90 to 94% collected on the year. The rest of it will trickle in through the remainder of the year. And you'll see we also got $92,000 of interest off of what's sitting in the bank. It's an important figure for us to keep an eye on. And that is the story of December revenue. Nice and easy. Let's go to page 16 and take a
I
look
want
at
to know about that $14 right there.
You know, I was going to dig into that for you, that other sources. I can almost guarantee you what that is somebody miscoded something to that line. So thanks for calling me out on it, Bill.
That was a really important grant that I signed. Yeah,
Very
Making sure we're
huge
looking at
impact.
exactly, big
Right,
impact,
That's
yep.
right. Okay, so taking a look at expenditures for the month, so we ran about $4.4 million of expenditures, including transit. So let's take a transit off first. You see that's that $1.3 million transit. So this is part of our Tier 1 budget for our districts. So each year, as we approve what we do with our Tier 1 budget, there's a $1.3 million line item, and we take that and we transit it through to our districts based off of their severe disabilities headcount. So that can vary, it can swing sort of wildly year by year to district on there, but based off of their headcount, they'll get their portion of the $1.3 million. We used to send that out in 2 chunks this year just to keep it simple. We just sent out everything in the chunk in December, so that's that 1.3. And then on operating expenses, we ran about $3.1 million total for the month. And if you're keeping tabs somewhere in the back of your head and you keep thinking, right, 3.4 million is about what we expect to see, and we keep seeing numbers below that 3.4 million, is that real? And the answer is no.
Okay.
So we're always going to be careful with how we qualify this. Yes, we are actually running lower on salaries and wages for the year. Some of that's good, some of it's not good. So there are places where we planned reductions, and those planned reductions have come through. There are also places where we are just understaffed and can't find the right people to staff those positions, which are not a variance that we want to run underneath. It's great on the financials, but it's not what we're actually here to do as a public institution. Nonetheless, it is running lower. You'll also see some things, like if you dug further into there, you would see our software expenses materially down year over year. Is that great management? Kind of. There are areas where Tim and his team have been going through and culling through the contracts and saying, do we need it, do we need it? But then there was a big payment last year for something that we prepaid for 3 years that doesn't appear in this year. So yes, we are running less than we are year over year. A good portion of that is deliberately the way that we're managing it, and some of it is just noise. So just kind of full disclosure as to what's going on in all of the spaces there.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you say. Some of it is just, I missed.
Noise. So I always talk in terms, when you're looking at your data, you want to separate your signal from your noise. So signal tells you this is real, and your noise is, well, weird things happen, and you can't always account for them.
Okay,
Yep.
got it.
And to put a finer point on the example that Rocco gave around software, some of the software packages, the contracts that we have, we pay for every 3 years. And so, and what we have chosen to do is we pay the bill knowing that there are going to be some years where we're going to have a bigger expense and some years we're going to have a lower expense, but we don't split the bill out over the years or anything like that. So you'll just see different expenditures depending on what software package is coming up due for that particular year.
All right, let's take a look. Let's bounce down to notes payable. We know the notes payable are paid, and that's a great thing. Cash balance, we always want to look at cash. We ended December with $25 million in the bank. Most of that is because we have now received the vast majority of our cash in, and we're going to start draining the cash out as we no longer get our $9 million of tax receipts for the rest of the year. That number's going to start going down. So as we take a look on page 18, the cash balance, you can kind of see that phenomena happening. You'll see that we are running higher than normal, but you'll see if you go to December, January of the previous years, you'll see that that dips off over time. Looking at our trailing 12-month average balance on there, that is rising. And the main reason I believe we are seeing that rising, it is twofold. One is, this year, we have received revenues in earlier than we have in prior years. So we had a couple of things. There were some prepayments that were available on grants. and we received some other revenues in upfront. We're a little bit faster in processing our grant stuff as well, and expenses are running a little bit lower. So that sort of dual effect has let that cash balance drift up just a little bit, but again, kind of in range for what we would expect from prior years as well. And finally, taking a look at interest rates. Interest rates have dropped down just a little bit on there. The LJIP is paying out at 4.25%. We keep an eye on that because when we do have $20 million sitting in a bank account, 4.25% is really material to us. And that is what I have for you for December. Any questions I can answer?
I'm just out of curiosity.
Yes, Denise?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, I'm hearing different school districts talk about loss of students from their district. So dwindling student populations, essentially. And I'm curious, across the board, so Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln, are we seeing that net loss? Because I also know that some districts are actually reporting an increase as well. So I'm wondering, are we seeing a net loss, and how is this impacting, or maybe not, our financials?
Sure. So let's break it down into a couple of spaces. So unlike districts, we have multiple sourcing funds. So our districts, almost all of their funds flow exactly with their student counts. And we do have a portion of our funding, so that which we see for resolution revenues, which is our general fund, does more or less flow directly with student counts. So as we see our larger districts losing students, we can see there's the decrease in what we have available for what we would call our Tier 1 and Tier 2 funds.
Okay.
And we do see that over time. It is mitigated somewhat by some of the other districts growing, but Monroe and Alsea can grow all they want, and they cannot offset Lincoln County, Corvallis, and Albany. So we're just going to kind of see that. Another thing that ends up happening with us is ESD funding for that portion. It flows through in an aggregate. So what's really important isn't the total student count we have, it's what proportion is that to the state. So if we are losing students at the same rate that Portland is losing students, we don't lose quite as much. When we are losing students disproportionately to the rest of the state is when you would really notice it.
Okay.
So you saw that back during COVID times because we have several districts that have a really high ratio of charter school online students, and you saw a massive drop, and LBL's resolution revenues compared to every place else in the state plummeted. We lost like a 10% kind of on there. But as we lose students at the same rough proportion as the other large places in the state, the effect you see is muted. The other thing you'll see is that's only a portion of our funding. So when we look at things like the EI grant, well, we are growing in student counts on the EI grant. How much of that is due to our specifics in the region versus our team is very, very good at going out and identifying. As that count grows, the grant grows, even if the state is shrinking.
Okay.
So it really, the sources of funding are kind of all over the boards. You need to understand where each portion comes from. Eventually, all funding follows your student counts, but because of the dynamics of what it's like to be in ESD, it's nowhere near as one-to-one as it would be for the districts.
Okay. All right.
And
Thanks for
adding to that, Denise, it's an excellent question. Adding to that, if you looked at it, so the picture that Rocco painted is very complex, and it actually has changed over the course of the last 5 years when you look at the proportionality to the state. Early on, we did see a greater proportion. Like you said, it was like, upwards of 10% of a reduction when we looked at those resolution dollars. If we looked at it simplistically and just looked at how many students do we have in our region now versus in 2020, we have about 3,000 less students in our region now than we did in 2020. So it's a pretty significant amount. However, in the last couple of years, we've pretty much tracked, like Rocco says, we've tracked with the rest of the state in terms of the proportion of the enrollment decrease, and so it hasn't hit us
Okay.
as hard.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing that I would like to add, and just for everyone to know, is we, in the planning that we've done, and what Rocco pointed out is important from the standpoint of we've done some planning and some very strategic reductions as we really have not laid people off, but as we've had a couple layoffs over the course of the last 3 years, but as we've seen changes happen, we've been able to be really strategic and try to play the long game in terms of the budget. That's put us in a pretty good financial position. That's very different than some of the school district news that you've been hearing about. For example, there's districts that are looking at making cuts mid-year right now. We are not in that position at all. Barring some major change that we're not already anticipating, and for the most part, the landscape that we're seeing that we can kind of anticipate right now, we're in a really good position going into this second year of the biennium. We don't anticipate making cuts. In fact, we would like to spend more money on staff by being able to actually hire more staff that we're having a hard time finding, which is the second part that he talked about that is a little unfortunate, that we've had some savings because we haven't been able to fill all the positions that we'd like to fill. And so that it's a balancing point with that. But I think one of the things, we're going to have an agency chat here in a couple weeks where we'll do an all-staff Zoom meeting, and Rocco and I are going to get a chance to kind of give a state of the budget sort of message to our staff about where we are fiscally right now, and we're in a really good spot. And I attribute it to really good financial planning and having people that really understand exactly where we are, and you all asking good questions and being able to see these reports every month that show our position in time. Kudos to Rocco and his team.
Yes, thank you so much for providing the context and details that you do every month. We really appreciate it.
If it's $14 from it.
I will look into the $14. I promise you I'll find it.
Really?
I will send a memo out to the board the moment I have it identified.
Great.
Rocco's gonna trace it back and like, just put $14 somewhere.
Any additional questions? Okay. All right, so we'll move on to superintendent report. Jason?
All right. Thank you. So I've got a few different items here. And one of the items, the third one, I'm going to team up with our chair here and have a conversation with you all about around scheduling thing. But I'm going to start with something really fun. It is School Board Appreciation Month. And I'm going to read this proclamation that I have for you. And I think this is just, I have a great deal of appreciation for all of you on the board and the work that you do and setting direction for us. So this is what we have. Whereas public education is foundational to a thriving democratic society, and education service districts play a critical role in strengthening students, families, and school districts by providing shared services, regional leadership, and specialized supports. And whereas locally elected education service district board members serve as stewards of the public trust, representing multiple communities and school districts, while advancing a collective vision for student success across the region. And whereas educational service district board members dedicate significant time and care to setting policy, approving budgets, and providing governance and oversight that ensure services are effective, fiscally responsible, and responsive to evolving student and district needs. And whereas education service district board members are committed to ensuring equitable access to high-quality services and supports for all students, particularly those with the greatest needs, so that every learner has the opportunity to succeed. And whereas service on an education service district board requires collaboration, systems thinking, and a deep commitment to partnership, often carried out with little public recognition. And whereas School Board Appreciation Month provides an opportunity to publicly acknowledge and thank education service district board members for their leadership, service, and dedication to public education. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the Superintendent and Board of Directors of LBLESD hereby recognize January as School Board Appreciation Month, and be it further proclaimed that we extend our sincere appreciation to all of you as our LBL board members for your leadership, service, and steadfast commitment to equity, collaboration, and high-quality services that support students, families, educators, and communities across our region. So, thank you so much. And when we finish up tonight, we have cards and a couple little presents for you to take away. So, there you go. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, and the next one that I have is I just want to, I typically point out one or two strategic tasks on our strategic task document for the month. And I'm going to point one out, really this is, for my team because they love this so much. But we really like to talk about mileage. And so I just wanted to share this great work that both our business office and particularly our technology team, and one person that deserves the lion's share is Devin Burleson. And I say we in the most royal sense, because I didn't do anything with it, other than have a whole bunch of meetings where we talked about mileage, and I'm like, that sounds good. I don't know how that gets done, but Devin knows how it gets done. But Devin and Tim, and I'm not sure who else on the team, Tim, is that pretty much the two of you working on this? Yeah, so created an automated mileage system that people go in, put their mileage into the app. It actually tracks using addresses and mapping software, and it figures out all of the mileage. And then it sends a report to the business office automatically after an administrator signs off, is like, yep, that's all correct. And then it gets paid with very little staff time. And this seems like, oh, okay, sure, that's great. A lot of things get automated, but this is actually a really big deal because we spend a massive amount of money on mileage because our business is having people travel all over the region. So there's a lot of dollars that go into mileage and a lot of staff time that goes into writing things down on mileage sheets. And it went really smoothly. I'm sure if you were to talk to a few staff members, there were probably a few bumps in the road. I know that, but it really is great work. And so thank you to Tim and his team.
And please sell that to component districts as a service. Because if I don't have to fill out one more mileage sheet on behalf of Lincoln County.
Yeah, there you go, right?
Yeah, I could definitely appreciate that because for me, entering mileage was just so tedious, that sometimes you're like, is it really worth it to put in, given all the time you need to spend just to enter it? So anything that makes the process easier, absolutely.
Yep. So that's what it was all about, and making it as accurate as possible too. So
I have a related question. I know that school districts for school buses get various reimbursements from
the state for the transportation fund, yeah.
What about the ESDs? None?
We do not.
Because it's not moving students.
Exactly. Yep, it's not about students. Yeah.
What about our early intervention though? We bus students.
We do not.
We don't anymore?
No, well, the school districts are responsible for transporting students.
Okay. I thought we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
The way the statute is around that is, we are providing those services on behalf of the school districts. Those are still those school district students.
Kids. Got it.
Yep, so they have to, it's probably one of our bigger challenges.
Yeah.
Our ECSC administrators have to be constantly figuring out when a new student comes and talking to districts about, hey, there's this new little one, and they live over here. You can figure out how to pick them up too. Yeah, so it's the school districts. Okay, so that was the strategic task. The next one is the OSBA Board Professional Development, and so we had asked for all of the board members to fill out a handy little Google form, and we got got really close to having everybody pick one date. We actually have, Amy's got the notes here, we have 2 dates.
Where 6 people are available.
Where 6 people are available, and so I'll just turn it over to Amy since she's got some notes and see, maybe we need to look for another date. Those were 3 dates that Vince Adams is available. So that's kind of where we're at. I think, Thursday, February 26th, is a night that, Miriam, you said you weren't available because of your kids. And then that happened to be, and then if we look at it, that happens to be the only night that Lori put down as being available, but I don't know if that's like.
That was when I had first gotten
So that's
here,
why I
so
wasn't
might
sure,
have
yeah.
more available.
Okay, that sounds
What were
good.
the other days?
So,
February 26th, March 3rd, and March 17th.
yeah,
And March 3rd was the one that I think you were the only one that was, you weren't sure if you were
Yeah.
available.
so if you happen to be available then,
Oh, okay.
that
would solve the problem.
winner, we would have it then, yeah.
And we know that Vince is available, so that's the advantage of these dates,
Let's go
so.
with that one.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you so much, Lori, we appreciate it.
Perfect, I will get back to
Fantastic.
Vince tomorrow, so that's good. So that's all that one was, and,
Excuse me, just,
oh, yeah,
so I'm,
Yep.
so I don't take time, Lisa, you'll send that out?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay.
Thank you, yes.
yeah, we'll
And
confirm with Vince, and then we'll send that out as a calendar invite, so thank you. And then the last one, I'm gonna actually ask Nancy to talk about, but I'll just do a brief intro. This is about winter in-service, and we had a great winter in-service. It was like a mini conference, and Nancy can give a few details, about this, but just kudos to Nancy for, she was the one that coordinated it. It really was a cool experience to have so many different staff members present different things, and some of it was on Zoom, and some of it was in person, and fantastic. So, Nancy, you want to talk about that a
Yeah,
little bit?
so last year, it was suggested that we try something different with our winter in-service. And apparently in days long past, the agency did used to provide something to do for winter. And so we came up with a coursework kind of thing where people would have different choices. We had a theme of wellness, and it could be physical wellness, financial wellness, mental health wellness, so there was a theme, and asked staff if they would be willing to teach courses. And I'm trying to remember how many we had.
I want to say there was
Probably 15 by the time.
15 or 16 different
back
courses.
out.
Yeah.
Different courses, some of them were on Zoom, some of them were in person, and then windstorm hit. And so we had a couple of people who were coming from the coast. Jason had to cancel his because he was going to be walking in PVR Arboretum, and so, but people were awesome. Like, I was in there changing people around and telling them where to, where they could go, and setting up Zoom meetings, and really, I mean, Christina did a survey after the fact, and high satisfaction, I mean, we were in the 4.4 to 4.6 out of 5. So that's, I think, pretty impressive for people's opinions. So just a couple of things. People really love the choice and autonomy. Would have been better had we not had a giant wind and rainstorm that set stuff down. We did a couple things that were community service. There's an organization called Lasagna Love, where you put together lasagnas and then donate them. And so we had something like that. I think one of the really popular ones was the sourdough bread one. And the
I'm still trying to keep my sourdough starter
keep it
alive.
alive, right? So I didn't even bother. I'm just like, no, I don't need one. And so it's just the peer-led learning, lots of props to both Tim and Max for their, and actually Nathan too, for their AI Canvas and Google trainings. And so yeah, we're going to do it again next year, because the sad part about it was our long-term care and treatment calendar doesn't actually match the rest of the ESD's calendar, but we're going to make that change next year and see how that goes, and so they'll be able to participate next year as well. So again, in the spring, I'll be asking if there's anybody who wants to do the course, so I might reach out to you guys too. See if
Yeah.
It was a really nice mix of
it was.
learning, like work things and wellness things.
We had a couple different movements and yogas and hobby type things too.
I'll just share on that I had all the executive assistants, we had a work day that day out in Central Lynn. And so I shared, the screen up on the screen for, all of the executive assistants. So Eddie was there with us. And so we participated in the, Canva training and the Google tips and tricks. So we had Max and Nathan both, and it was wonderful.
It was incredible.
Yeah, so we're actually gonna have Max come to our, next meeting, not next meeting, next one. And he's gonna go into more detail after we were all talking about, we're like, we need to know more about this stuff. So he's gonna come and do more training on that from that training, and, it was great.
Yeah.
I attended Tim's AI one, and that was awesome, and I am not afraid of AI anymore. Seriously.
And you got to see what Jason.
I was gonna say, and he even made me look bald.
I wasn't gonna.
I don't have a problem saying
He
that.
had to match me and Rocco.
That's right. Yeah, I was like, let's see what AI does to Jason's headshot picture to make him look more like Tim and Rocco. That's what it did.
He left us out.
It was good. Yeah, so that's all we have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. So there's just a couple of things at the end to get through really quick. There's some information-only stuff that you can look at your leisure. And then, important dates. We have our board retreat at the ESD building from 8 to 4 on February 2nd, which is coming up awfully fast.
It is, yeah.
It's also my son's 16th birthday, so. And then, Tuesday, February 17th, that is our regular board meeting. And then Tuesday, March 10th, and I just wanted to point out the March date, earlier in the month than normal. That is intentional, just so we're thinking about that ahead of time. It's because we have to let employees know by March 15th, for contract renewal reasons. And so we have to approve that at the meeting, and that has to happen before the 15th. So normally we're on the third Tuesday, but, on that 1 month, we're a week early, so.
I can tell you I will not be present for that one.
Okay, thanks for the heads up. All right, so always nice when we can wrap up a little early. So we are adjourning at 7:11.